Well, good afternoon. Let's see if I can
One
share.
second.
Hmm?
One second.
Oh,
All right, you are host.
thank you very much.
All right.
Hi, Reese. How you doing?
Say good. Where'd we go today?
Not shy all of a sudden.
Where did we go today?
31.
We went somewhere today. Where did we go after
Which
church?
one am I on? 31, 37.
37.
Oh.
Jacob and his brethren.
Okay,
That
the
means Joseph and his brethren.
story of Joseph.
After church, we went to birthday party, and we came home.
Really?
A birthday party.
I hope you had a good party.
Yeah, was it?
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. All I have to do is get it to share.
You're sitting on the steps, Reese. You're gonna slide down? You're gonna slide down the steps?
That one, probably the wrong one.
Oh,
It's a
no,
long way.
no, we're not gonna slide down. the
No. I hit the select one.
road.
That's where you had a chair. Right?
Okay. Yeah, I had to pick the one. I had a couple of them up there.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Is anyone else going to make it that you know of, Joe?
Haven't heard from Danny.
Or Anita.
Yeah, or Anita.
Oh, okay. Is Anita okay?
Haven't heard anything.
Okay.
She was okay last week.
Sunday she was.
Okay. Yeah, she was here last week.
She is.
Oh, there she is. She's here.
That's me.
Well, hi, Anita. You must have heard us talking about you.
She can't hear us.
Her ears are burning,
I
yeah.
don't think she hears us yet.
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
Good.
No.
I don't know for how long.
4 minutes after 6.
Okay. Shall we open with prayer?
That's right.
Again, Heavenly Father, as we now go into the side of Genesis, most of us know the story of Joseph. Help us as we go through this to see, they may be ancient times, but they're sure modern times. People are the same. And guide us as we go through this to see the actions of the brothers, but also the grace and love of God. As we go through this, abide with us, teaching us, and having patience with us and moving us towards your kingdom. In your Son's name, Father, we open these prayers. Amen. Well, we're back in Genesis on Joseph and working through the story of what it's all about. And there's a number of lessons in Joseph. Forgiveness is one. How the Lord works with us is another.
All our sins.
Joseph has all these problems, and things seem to work out so differently for him in the end.
Because that was a plan.
And yeah, it's part of God's plan. Even the problems end up working out better than we thought.
Mhm.
And so just whoops. As I turn to where we need to be. Nope. It's moving the other way.
Oh.
My crazy fingers are moving. I think I'm going in the right direction, but I'm going back and forth.
You haven't got marker in there?
No, not on there. I thought I did. I think I see it now. 37. Okay. Joseph, a couple of topics we'll have in here. Joseph hated by his brethren. His 2 dreams, his brethren conspire his death. He's cast into the pit. They sell him. and he ends up in Egypt. And that's,
Right.
this might explain a number of things because, when you look at what goes on in the Mideast right now, Egypt seems to stay away and stay out of the problem when Israel is involved. It
Yeah.
doesn't get involved with all of those.
So,
In fact, I think the Egyptians are wise. They don't consider themselves part of the whole group over there. But
yeah.
as we go through this, do you have any questions from last time? Wait, I think Anita had a question.
I think we went over some of like where we were, and I think where Hebron was, and it was like we were in the same area of, I guess it's at Canaan at that time.
Right.
I mean, they
Yep.
should put highway signs there so I could figure out where we are,
Yes, I was
Mention all these
very
names.
negligent as usual. I didn't get my maps together.
They do have
will-
some in the back of the Bible, though, so that's, I could
Yes.
easily go look for myself too.
Yeah, and that helps a lot to understand where these areas are. When you're going through Genesis, if you follow all of this, what happens, it begins to narrow down into the area around Canaan and what's
Yeah.
actually going on there. But I think as we've gone through it, when we're reading Joseph here in the house, we just finished it recently. And one thing I thought about it was it's so much. There's so much modern day work in Joseph. I mean, people are very much the same way. And the interesting thing with the brothers, what happens with the brothers and their attitudes, and keeping in mind that Laban is setting Jacob up. He has this problem of half of his sons are stepbrothers to a couple of others, and it's they realize that Jacob is really in love with Rachel. He never did get out of that one.
Yes, for her first.
And that's what he asked for. And Leah's fighting for some kind of a recognition because she does love Jacob, but it doesn't go the way she wants it to. And the brothers are very angry at that. But follow this as you think about the story as we're reading it, the unfolding of it. It's a fascinating story in many ways.
It's one of my favorites.
So I'll start with verse 1 and we kind of go through this. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. See, it puts him right where he was. These are the generations of Jacob. Now, this is, you see, once again in Genesis, he's giving you a generation. So it's changing from the last lesson.
Mhm.
Whatever the topic was, the topic's changing now. Joseph being 17 years old,
And they sold him.
17-year-olds, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now, one thing I'm thinking, their evil report. He was tattling on. This is what they're not doing what they should do. That's going to get them mad too. But now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And the other reason why what comes through, he really loved Rachel.
And you only had two sons.
And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. So because of this, you've already got the animosity going. Has not much to do with Joseph at all, except that who his parentage is. But they don't know what had happened with Jacob. It doesn't tell us that they do. So far as Laban did, how he handled this situation and having marry Leah first.
What evil was they doing that he told them about? They don't say.
What? No. Oh, well, the evil report. They're obviously not doing what they should be doing. And when they're watching these animals, the sheep and everything, and Joel on it.
My Bible references, 1 Samuel 2:22 to
Yeah.
34. It's Eli and his son.
Oh yeah, same thing. Eli doesn't take care of his sons, and Joseph isn't taking care of his. Jacob isn't taking care of his. Rosalie was looking at her Bible
Yeah.
looks at Eli,
1 Samuel
and Eli has 2 sons, and he doesn't in any way deal with their behavior. He doesn't,
right.
and Jacob's doing the same thing here because he's got so much to do. He's so busy, and the other thing, he's more in love with Rachel than Eve, and he kind of lets them go, and they kind of run wild, and that's wow. I think the one thing that I've seen that's kind of that fits into this picture very clearly. I marvel every day I get into these classes and I'm working with these students, and they're in a situation where they all work. In fact, I have one, it's kind of interesting. One girl, she's the oldest, she's got 4 brothers, and it's a new student I've got. And she says, she's got to watch over her brothers. And she wants to make sure when they go out when they get a girl, that girl's going to have to get along with the parents, and I'm thinking, you don't hear that. When I was dating Rosalie, I never really thought a little bit about, how mom got along with her or not, and I don't think she thought very much about how long got along with her mother. We did, but you don't have that. Well, she was very much concerned about that. And the other girls are talking, the other students came in, and in different classes, this always comes up, that the students are always concerned that whoever they marry gets along with their parents. Now, in this situation, that helps. And even when they have stepchildren, they seem, at least the ones I'm looking at, and that's just what I hear in class. I mean, there's not a lot of that one with stepchildren. They get along very, very well with them. But what happens, the oldest one is constantly taking care of little ones. And I've heard before, so many times I've heard that a girl, when she has, and there's a lot of different, if she's got to take care of the kids, she doesn't want kids. And you go, wait a minute, what is this all about? So this is a little family. All I'm doing is coloring a little family thing going on here.
This Samuel.
Yeah.
It says that they lay with women as So does that have anything?
Everything the same thing. Everything the same thing. He's not disciplining himself. Right. And what is it?
1 Samuel 2:22 and 23.
Yeah, he talks.
Eli.
He talks about Eli.
So I don't know
they were doing the same thing.
They were doing the same thing. Yeah. So look that up.
Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. I just read that, but just lets you know there's a lot of animosity here. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet more. And I often wonder, whenever I read this, I wonder, why would Joseph do that? I mean, he's 17. You'd think he would know, that he must feel the problem going on, but he doesn't care.
He doesn't understand.
And well, I'm sure he understands.
Maybe he's just proud about it.
And I think they're all Rachel's my mother, and look what you got.
Yeah, probably so.
But then he dreams a dream, and follow this, because this is going to come up in a very strange way. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood around about and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, shall thou indeed reign over us, or shall thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And this is going to be fulfilled in many ways. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it to his brethren, and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. Now in Egypt, they don't have these big telescopes, so probably 11 stars, the main stars that he's talking about that they would see, made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee on the earth? And his brethren envied him, and his father observed the saying. Again, thinking about it. He doesn't understand it, but he is thinking about it.
Mhm.
And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. Shechem, you remember Shechem? This is the place they wiped it out.
Yeah,
So they're back there.
they killed out everybody for Dinah.
Right, because of Dinah. And a certain man, back on 15, and a certain man found him, and behold, let me go up. Oh, yes, 13, that's where I'm at. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, here am I. He's going to say, come. And he says, here I am, send what you want me to do. And he said to him, go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in a field, and the man asked him, saying, what seekest thou? He's going, this is where they should be. They're not here. I wonder where they got. Now where do I begin to look? And he sees a stranger there, and the stranger says, and he says, I'm seeking my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, they are departed hence, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. Now they should be in Shechem feeding it, but they got him in Dothan now. And it doesn't tell you much about Dothan. And when they saw him afar off before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him and cast him into some pit. And we will say, some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. There's something here. I know when I was reading, I'm just reading news a little bit. There's something about this whole thing where there's this excessive anger. If you listen what's going on in the whole Mideast, there's always this, it's not just anger, it's excessive anger. They don't just hate Israel, they want to kill everybody in it. And it's so intense. And again, it's the same thing here, that they want to do it. And Reuben, remember Reuben's the oldest, heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. Reuben's an interesting character. He wants to do the right thing, but he's very weak. There's no follow through.
Yeah.
And Reuben said unto him, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands to deliver him to his father again. See, Reuben wants to bring him back. Now remember, there is a story about Reuben of fooling around one of his father's mistress.
Mhm.
So and the other thing that will come out, what seems to be happening here, and I don't think we think much really think about that part, but each one of the characters, each one of the sons, the character comes out. And it's pretty obvious why God isn't dealing with them and dealing with Joseph like he does. And it came to pass when Joseph was coming to his brethren that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And he sat down to eat, and they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites. Remember Ishmael?
Yeah.
See how it ties it together. Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery, and balm, and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. Now, all of these places, Gilead, remember, Gilead's going to come up again.
Mhm.
So you see, they're all in this area. They don't possess it. They're using it right now, but God says they're going to get it. And Judah Watch when we get to this other one. Judah's the son that's going to
To
have all the
inherit.
kings.
Yeah. Mhm.
And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, and our flesh, and our brethren and his brethren were content. See, he is taking a side on it and trying to help Joseph. It could be. There's no guarantee here. He could be seeing the money he's getting. But when you watch how his character flows out, you figure, no, Judah is the one that seems to feel responsible for all the brothers.
Mhm.
And you'll see why this will come up later. Then they passed by Midianites, and there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. So now they sold him.
So where did Reuben go?
And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. See, he's really upset now, but he doesn't have follow through. And he returned unto his brethren and said, the child is not, and whither shall I go? Because he's the oldest one. He would be the one responsible for him. And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats and dripped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this we have found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. It's kind of a interesting thing,
Yeah,
that they
really.
would do that
Cool.
to the dad. But
Yeah.
it's real. It's a fact. People do that. I mean, maybe not that they do it just that gross. I think sometimes.
No conscience.
There's no conscience.
No. Yeah.
And he knew it and said, "It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces." And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. See? Now, when you think of what has happened here, the one thing I'm doing when I'm reading the Bible, I've often heard how out of date it is, But when you really get into these stories, you find out they're not out of date. They're not out of date. One of the things I had to deal with in the ministry was a son actually murdered his father and was trying to kill his mother.
Yeah.
And it was he tried to stab her, and she actually grabbed the knife with the blade and everything and yanked it out of his hand. It cut her hand terribly, but then she had the knife and he ran. So, and I've seen like that over and over again in different places. Not that severe, but very much the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, "For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning." Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. See, it's almost like a movie. It's very well put together because you see Jacob now crying because his son's dead, and they flip at the last and tell you, okay, the Midianites now have Joseph in Egypt and they're selling him. And I think as we go through this, one of the things that's helpful, I don't know how much patience any of us have with God, how firmly we hold with that. With Joseph, watch what he goes through, and he's always trusting God. And it came to pass, we're on 38, and it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanitish, whose name was Shuha, and he took her and went in unto her, and she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name See, there's really, when you look at the whole thing, there's really not a whole lot of difference in what goes on today, except these guys are older,
He yields to temptation.
but he's yielding to temptation. And she conceived and bare a son Er. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was a Chezib when she bare him. And he was at Chezib when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. Now,
Oh, for his son.
yeah, now watch, we've moved away, but this is going to tie in a very strange way why he's doing this. He's shifted because Joseph is what,
Son.
10 years? Is he 10 years or 20?
Oh, more than, yeah, almost 20.
I think he's about 20 years in Egypt. And what you find, what they're doing, and we'll find out when we go there. I'm just saying again, I think it, but I'm not sure. But what is happening here, what you got a flashback, and now Joseph in Egypt, we're not going to look at him, but they're showing you the brothers and what has happened with them.
Mhm.
And Judah has now married a woman, and this one woman, Tamar, is going to be important for what's going to happen yet.
Daughter-in-law.
That's his daughter-in-law.
Mhm.
And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him.
Goodness.
And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. See, it's interesting when you read that, and I know they talk about, X-rated. I mean, this is what this would be.
Mhm.
But there's something that's playing out here, I think, that's so important for us.
10, he slew him too.
And in 10, and the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also.
My goodness, he just struck him down.
See,
huh?
well, they don't tell you how. He could have somebody else do it, but he finished him off.
He's one.
Now, yeah. Then said Judah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house, till Selah my son is grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house.
Okay, can I ask a question? Why was it important that the child be from that same woman? Why couldn't they go have their own heirs?
No, part of the
Brother.
that's
Brothers.
oh my. See, this is, what is that called? The rule of, they're going to tell us, I think.
They're always
It was a law in the
yeah.
amongst the Jews, and it came from God himself, that they were allowed to do that.
They wanted them to do it.
And it's called the Levite, the Levirate, the law of the Levirate, where if the woman was married to one of the sons, the husband died, then the next son was supposed to marry her. And not marry, but have a child, give her a child
He married her.
for her brother. And he was worried. He wanted, he wanted for his own, for himself.
Yeah, he just.
See, now when you think about that, what might be the problem? Why are they so concerned about that? We talked a little bit about it, and it comes up continually here. The birthright. Who's going to get the birthright?
Mm-hmm.
Judah's one of the oldest. So the oldest son will get the birthright.
But Reuben doesn't get.
And Reuben's not going to get it because he's the oldest, but there's a reason why. Because what is happening now, the Lord, because of the children of Jacob, they're not the best in the world. And the Lord is very choosy. He says, okay, you're going to have, I don't want you, I want the other one. He does the same thing. In fact, That's the same reason. Remember, we talked about that with Jacob and Esau.
Mhm.
You know, Esau was going to trade it for a porridge, about a bowl of oatmeal. And so he continues, worried about his son dying again, so he sends her back home. And in process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted and went up into his sheep shearers to Timnath. Now, one of the things about the Bible, when you're reading it, you have to bear in mind what is said before and see what's going to happen, because he and his friends, Hira, the Adulamite, he's going to see his friend, the Adulamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnah to shear his sheep. Now, he moved her somewhere else. There's a bit of time has
It's
changed.
past, yeah, I think so.
You know, and she put her widow's garments off from her and covered her with a veil and wrapped herself and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnath, for she saw that Shelah was grown. Now, see, he was supposed to give Shelah to her,
Mm-hmm.
and she was not given unto him to wife. Now, one of the tough things about the Bible is most people don't know what goes on in the ancient world anyway, you know, and this was not just, I don't know, from some of the things I read, this wasn't only in Jerusalem, in the Jews they did this, all the way across they did, because particularly their oldest son, who was going to get the blessing, or was possible in line for the blessing,
Mm-hmm.
was they wanted, and it's not only the Messiah, if you notice, they gave a blessing to the oldest son all the time. And the results of that, really, if you read these English novels, you find the firstborn
Mm-hmm.
inherited everything.
Mm-hmm.
The secondborn, he had to do something, and if the
Yes,
third,
sure.
each one went down, but the oldest one got everything.
Mhm.
And if he had a child, the child got it. And it's not much different than that. And it's really preserving the inheritance so that it keeps the name of the families going. Okay.
50.
And what she's done now, she's gone into the main gate and sat down. Now, what I know the first time I heard some of this stuff, when I was reading some of this many years, I know it was I'm positive it was at Austin when I heard this. You know, show you how things come down. And that's Austin, Texas, or the Concordia in Austin. You know what we call, and I don't know if they still do, but it's there, the red light district.
Mm-hmm.
It got its name during the time of Solomon, because these priestess of the fertility gods, they would have sex with the people that have to leave a coin on their navel when they were finished, but after they had them in these groves and everything, but later as it began to deteriorate, they had moved into the cities, and the oil that they burned in a lamp gave off a red glow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much of it. If you think, you know, if you look at the wedding, what we do in a wedding, it's very difficult to find anything in the wedding that we have that didn't come out of the Roman Empire. You know, the ring, the cake, the dresses, the whole thing, you know, comes out of the Roman Empire. And we don't even think it like that. So what has happened now? She's got a right, and Judah has ignored it. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way and said, go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what wilt thou give me that thou mayest come in unto me? What you gonna pay me for? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, that's thy signet and thy bracelets and thy staff, that it is in thine hand. And he gave it her and came in unto her, and she conceived by him.
I'm surprised he would give her all that
Now,
stuff. You know?
if you notice what he did, the
That's
signet ring is his identification.
Yeah.
The staff is also his identification of who he is, you know. And so she's asked for, in the bracelets that he wear, all of this is sure identification of Judah.
Right.
Now, as you begin to read this, you know, undoubtedly what comes to a lot of my, well, boy, this is a terrible
I
story,
can't believe he would do that.
you know. And you want to, well, wait a minute.
It's just
Can
the
he
wrong
be,
way.
why would he do that?
I guess God.
You know, you think it, right, well, yeah, I guess so. But when you think about that, you know, he's giving some pretty valuable stuff away. And she rose and went away and laid by her veil from her and put on her garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend, the Adulamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. See what happened? She set him up.
She went back home. Yeah.
Then he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the harlot? And was openly by the wayside. And they said, there was no harlot in this place. See, she knew he was coming. She set everything up. He fell right into it. And then when she's finished, she walks off. But again, watch this. And he turned to Judah and he said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her.
What does it mean? Let her take it to her.
Let it take it to her. Let her do what she wants. Because if it gets out, he's going to have to go say what he did. He's going to be shamed by it. It wasn't what he was supposed to do.
He gave all that stuff.
All right. Plus give all his personal stuff. And it came to pass about 3 months after that, it was told Judah, saying, Tamar thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. See, this is what they're upset about. And Judah said, bring her forth and let her be burned.
Burn.
Now David was worried about the same thing with Bathsheba. When she was brought forth, she said to her father-in-law, saying, by the man whose these are, am I with child? And she said, discern, I pray thee, whose are these? The signet and the bracelets and staff.
She's wise.
Now, if you can imagine the situation now when she brings this and says, okay, Dad, here it is. You know, you're the father. Now, this is the part I think is important. And Judah acknowledged them and said, she hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah, my son, and he knew her again no more. See, he had broke the law. He was supposed to do that. Now, we might not like that in our world, but that was very much part of their world. But there were so few people in the world, you know, to keep the name going. They had no other way of going around that. And although we might not like that, there's a lot of things in our world that go very much the same way, you know, when this whole thing comes down with sex. But what he's saying is she was more righteous because I should have given her Selah, and he didn't. And it came to pass in the time of her travail that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, this came out first. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out, and she said, how hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Perez, the breach. And afterward came out his brother that had the scarlet thread on his hand, and she called his name Zerah, which means red.
Red. Wow.
Right.
We'll hear more about them.
So
too.
they'll come up again,
Mhm.
but it's giving you to follow this kind of information and everything. It is important because it's telling you the one thing you find out: everybody in the Bible sins, no doubt. You don't get away from that
Yeah.
one. We're on 39 now. Any questions on what we had so far? He goes back to Joseph now. Now, I think one thing just notice about Judah. Judah at least seems to admit when he's wrong. He does wrong, but he admits by it. But he wasn't the one that destroyed Shechem. He wasn't the one that did that. It was others.
He wasn't part of that.
It doesn't seem he was part of that.
Wow.
And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, and the office of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had, he put it into his hand. So Joseph is one of these guys, no matter what he touches, there's no problem with it. It works out very well. They're all going to do this. Watch, this is not the only time. And it came to pass from the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had. He didn't know what he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored,
So
highly trusted.
You trusted him.
Right.
Yeah.
And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in this house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in the house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? The strange thing about this is that for everything that's happening with Joseph now, he does try to do the right thing.
Sure.
But if you see Egypt was at a point when you follow the whole history of Egypt, it's an up and down thing. When they're poor, they grow, and when they get a lot, they begin to go down. And this is a point when they're probably right in the middle somewhere. They have a lot of goods, and they're bored stiff. And this is what the wife, she likes the way Joseph looks. And it came to pass as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. So he's going to leave his robe there, which now it's going to follow. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a live voice. And it came to pass when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. Just a setup. And this happens not infrequently. I remember many years ago when I was young, I was in high school, and it just shocked me. I think I was in high school. I know I couldn't have been higher than high school. But they had this story down here of this one guy who had been in prison for 15 years for raping this girl around City Park. And they had to back in trial again for being raped again. And for the lawyer, the lawyer, I think, for him was in the court at the time. And he heard the whole story and he thought about this other guy. So he started thinking about it and looking into this. And what they found out was that the guy had turned her down. And so she injured herself with a pencil. And by confronting her, she admitted to it. But then they realized this other guy was locked up 15 years and then they could set him free because it was obvious he didn't do it. See, it's the same thing here that you find out. And I remember that because it really shocked me. That always started me thinking, whoa, what
15
can
years.
happen? 15 years. And he was married. His wife divorced him. You know, when he came out, I don't know what he had, but what happened to him after that. But this is what she's doing to Joseph. And the results are very similar. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in to me to mock me. And it came to pass as I lifted up my voice and cried that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which he spake unto him, saying, after this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison.
He couldn't defend
Potiphar
himself.
is head of the protection of the king, my
He's
top sheriff,
executioner. Okay.
and he's part of the head executioner. He's gonna get all of these things done. And when he hears that, he locks Joseph up. But you know, when you're reading this, there's a sense that Potiphar had to reflect on that. And I'm pretty sure, at least when I read it, and I'm just saying that he realized that this might not be the way,
But he never does get him out.
but he's not going to get him out.
No.
But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made to prosper.
Mhm.
Now, the other thing about this, and follow that, we might be going, poor Joseph, and that it's really, it's a terrible thing that has happened. But what is actually happening, the Lord is putting him in a position to be to get a much greater reward than he would by any other way.
Mhm.
See, his brothers throw him in prison. Throw him in a pit, and they sell him. Now he's brought to Potiphar, and Potiphar's very close to Pharaoh. One of Pharaoh's, you might call him of the security force of Pharaoh, around Pharaoh.
Officer, yeah.
And so he takes Joseph in, and he marvels at what Joseph can do. So he lets it all in his hand, and his wife makes a pass at him. And when it doesn't work, she knows she's in trouble if he lets it out. So she accuses him. And now Potiphar throws him into prison, back again in prison. But it's always the king thing. He's right around Pharaoh all the time, although he's not known to Pharaoh at that time.
Mhm.
Now we're on chapter 40. Any questions about this or anything? I'm hoping you followed this, because there's so much here that is so modern.
Mhm.
Just think about it. We might get upset at Joseph, what's going on here and what world they have. But, they didn't celebrate decadence. They don't make a feast out of it, where the whole city comes out and or at least people come in, they're going to celebrate it, or even try to justify why they should celebrate decadence. And they really didn't take, at this point, the religious festival that was Mardi Gras, really a religious celebration, and turn it into what we did.
Right.
And when you look at Bourbon Street and what goes on there, it's not anything. It's a lot. It's just as bad, if not worse. I'd say even worse.
Mhm.
But again, notice through the problems, God is leading Joseph to a better place. And I think if you look at our lives through the problems we have, God actually leads us to a better place. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in a ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. So he's still around Potiphar's world.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season inward.
So you put him in
In the
charge.
ward, right? He's
Yeah.
over them. Well, see, wherever he goes, no matter how bad they think he is, he proves himself to be very good.
Mhm.
And so they trust him implicitly.
Trustworthy. Yeah.
And, with that kind of a situation, Potiphar had to think, wait a minute, there's something going on here.
Yeah.
And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in mourning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officer that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me then, I pray thee. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. See, now a couple of things here. It's grapes, very good, and he's giving it to Pharaoh.
Mhm.
And Joseph said unto him, this is an interpretation of it. 3 branches or 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up his head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. And when the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was of all manner baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat of thy flesh from off of thee.
Mhm. That must have been a shock.
Well, maybe not, because he probably knew what he did. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and to the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him.
Mm.
So, and again, you know, when you think about this whole thing here again, forgetting it, you know, Joseph's got a pretty tough time, but think how many times when we really wanted something very, very badly, or needed help or something very bad, we prayed very, very hard for it and got it. And did we go back and thank God for it most of the time? No. We just went on, did our own little thing, you know. And usually what it will be, you know, they might say, like the butler will say, thank you. But think how quickly we forget all these things.
He forgot about Joseph. Yeah.
So we have 41, but I think I'll wait on that one because that's a big one.
Mhm.
It's going to be Pharaoh's 2 dreams, Joseph's interpretation of them, and what happens
Yeah.
there. It's a very interesting plot.
Oh,
You know, if you
yeah.
follow this,
I've always
but
loved it.
I think one thing keep in mind here that I think is so very important, with Joseph, God is very important to him. So he always has God on his mind.
Mhm.
And God always has him on his mind, man, because he always has God on his mind. And what he's receiving, these blessings. And think about the brothers now, where the brothers are and what they're doing and what's happening to them. And what I think you find is that where Joseph is, even though he's got trials, he's treated very well, but he's not in a good place. But he's treated very well. Where his brothers are in a good place and they don't treat each other very well. You know, there's not a lot of joy, it seems, in their lives.
I don't think there's much love between them.
Where Joseph, there's something going. And I think this is so very important for us to realize, you know, how important is God for us? I just did a study, and I'm going to get back to this. I think I'm going to make one of the newsletters on that one too. On what is the Sabbath? You know, we think of the Sabbath, we talk about it, but in the church, it was in the early church, and I know with my students, Sabbath is a big thing. I mean, I'm surprised. They'll always talk about what they do on the Sabbath and what Dad does, and I'm sure there's not all of them quite that way, but there's too many of them talk about Dad and how they have children, their brothers and sisters. They all have to give a Bible lesson or something. And as I said on one of them, one of my classes, a girl that's in Minnesota, was saying that there's about 8, I think, and her youngest brother was about 6 years old. You know, had to sit down and study. They had to prepare it. They had a certain amount of time during a week. He told them what they'd have to do. They have to develop their own little lesson, and it's 10 or 15 minutes, if it's even that long. And then what they would do, they deliver it. And she said her 6-year-old brother, you know, just shocked the family with what he was doing. And I've heard what I usually did with 4S when I had it is have the kids open with prayer. And I was amazed. We had this one very young guy, and the prayer he gave, you know, just kind of blew me out of the water. Thinking, whoa, I'd expect this from a pastor almost, thanking God for the salvation, for the gifts that they have, for the healing of a grandfather, and what he was hoping that God would allow him to do. You know, so the relationship with Joseph and God is very, very close. Hope that makes a little sense. I'm not sure. Wow, 7:00. Any questions?
Is there any significance to the 3 days in both instances, both the dreams?
Yeah, the 3 days was going to be when Pharaoh made the judgment on him.
Mhm.
In 3 days, he was going to call him forward. That's what it said there, you know. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh, and this is verse 20, Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants.
It happened on
He brought them up, and he restored the chief butler, but unto his butlership again, he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand, but he hanged the chief baker.
So he knew the exact day that it was going to happen.
They knew the exact day it was going to happen. Now you can imagine this. You wonder, wait, if this is so, the chief butler should have thought of Joseph on that, but he didn't.
Anyway.
And it's not unusual. I mean, like I said, so many of us don't really. We pray about something, and if we get it, we never even think about it. It's not that important.
No, I was talking about, you've been saying how so many of the things refer back and forth to other things
Yeah.
that we brought up. And I was wondering if the 3 days had anything to do with the 3 days between Jesus' death and resurrection.
No. What it was, the 3 days, what he did, and I don't think Joseph would have known that, but the 3 days, when he said that, the 3 days, Pharaoh had his birthday in 3 days, and this is when he's going to make his move. And again, what you have here is God is working through Joseph. He's giving him what he needs to know. Whether Joseph knows that or not, I don't know, but he's very confident with what has happened.
Well,
And we'll see that
tribulations-
with the dreams of Pharaoh.
Tribulations produce patience.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Joseph, he's got to be patient.
And that's something I found myself using a lot in the classes now. But think about it: with a Christian, tribulation we rejoice in tribulation.
We should.
Now I don't know about you; I haven't rejoiced in a lot of tribulation, but it works
We should
patience,
thank God for that.
and a patience builds hope. Because when you have patience with the problems, you got to work them. You got to have patience to get through them.
Mm-hmm.
But as you get the patience, you realize God is going to see you through it.
Mhm.
And that, wow, okay, he does this. If I wait, he'll do it. Where most people don't. Okay.
Mhm.
Anything else? Oh, okay. Well, let us close with prayer. Again, Heavenly Father, as we go through your book, and in Genesis at least this point, help us as we read these stories, not to read them as a fairy tale, but see the similarity. I mean, the problems that Jacob has with his kids. I think some of our family and almost every church I've been into can say, "Wow, I have the same problem going." And as we watch the relationship between these men and God, and these women and God, we realize that it's, even though it looks bad, in many cases, it's better than we have. Teach us and make us humble as we read this, but to grow in that truth and realize the blessings you have, and that nothing happens to us that for some reason you didn't want to happen to us. With that truth, Father, we leave ourselves in your hands, looking forward to that time when you're going to bring all this together. In your Son's name, Father, we pray. Amen. And we'll start with 41.
All right, 41. I got that down.
Got a question, Anita?
No, a comment. I know you never watched soap operas. I didn't until I heard Aunt Gilda and Uncle Raymond. And one of the things that would turn me off was just the implausibility of the situations they got themselves in. But after reading this, I have to say, soap operas have nothing on them. It's like they're, it's like how can these people not know what they're doing? I mean, like, maybe he didn't recognize his daughter-in-law who had been widowed for so many years, but how can you be intimate? I think in one of them they had this woman who slept with her virginal daughter's suitor, who was like in his early 20s and very fit, and she had been married and for quite a few years to the daughter's husband, to the daughter's father-in-law, who was certainly in his 40s, maybe approaching 50. And it was a masquerade party, and they all had the same costumes. And she inadvertently slept with the young man. Now, I can't believe that a young man of 20's body would be a little bit different than a man in his mid-40s. Even if he's in good shape, things shift. And it's like, how can you expect me to believe that? And it's like, and that was one of the things. It's like, I can't believe that. And yet I look here and it's like all these things happen here. They can't be that naive too,
Yes.
can they? I mean,
I think they can. But it's not naivete. I think it's just plain sin. It's amazing what we get. If you look at Hollywood and read.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I think they borrowed a lot of the material from him, from
I
here,
would-
and maybe cleaned it up a little bit. It's like,
well, you have to read Chaucer. You find out he could have found it right in Chaucer too.
I remember reading a little bit of it and being completely turned off and didn't like it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know.
Yeah, we read Chaucer, but it's an interesting thing about that because he mocks vice and
Right.
praises virtue, where we mock virtue and praise
Virtue.
vice.
Uh-huh.
But sin has been around for a while, I guess. It's, you can't really
Ever since Adam.
really improve on it. You can't really get I think anything new on it after this.
No, and that's very
Nothing new.
true. Nothing new under the
Nothing.
sun on that
And
one.
that's in all our lives too. It's just usually not as dramatic. Although, but the whole time we were reading that, I was thinking of this one character on there, and it's like, well, maybe she is plausible. I don't know. But
The strange
that was
thing
not the
about
point of
that-
tonight. The point of tonight was like Joseph being patient and the Lord being with him, But it's like when you read something like that, you just can't help laugh a little bit,
Oh, no. The strange thing about that, when I was at Emmaus, one of the families that were there, their son was in all of my daughters or something. All my sons, one of the major soap operas. He was the main one on there. And I saw him, and it was really amazing to see, because she told me, and he introduced himself. And I'm thinking, I never
you went
watched
off.
this. So, but he's bald headed. He really didn't look anything like you saw him in a movie, in a TV. And I'm thinking, what is going on there? I thought, okay, they're amazing what they can do.
Well, right when you were getting to the good part, my machine started going in and out, saying my internet, my connection is
yes.
bad. So I will tell you good night, and
Okay.
I'll try to concentrate on the purpose of what we're learning here, and not on the craziness.
Right.
Okay.
Have a good one.
night.
Okay, good night.